But before we talk about inventory, we need to pick up from wherever we left of last class. So yeah, I believe in last class, yeah, there's a problem we made. So I was trying to show you the collision detection. So I made some mistake there, but however, yeah, whatever. So right now, this project template worked like this. So when you shoot the project, we will have some projectile coming out, and when we hit the object, we cannot get in. When we hit this projectile, we will get some damage. So yeah, I was trying to show you the difference between the two functions. First is on collision enter. Second is on trigger enter. So what is the difference between on collision enter and on trigger enter? So when you are calling on collision enter when you are implementing the on collision enter in your script, on collision enter, this function will be called whenever there's a hit between two objects. And that kind of hit, usually it works like the hit in the real world, so you cannot just get through that object. The two objects won't get like something like overlap, something like that. And when you are using the onTrigger enter function, that means there's a property. You can check that this collider is a trigger. Then if that project is a trigger, if that object is a trigger, then you can actually go through that object in the game thing. Yeah, let me show you how we're doing that. Okay, so this is a game thing. Let's set up two different cubes. So let's play with this two cube. All right. Okay, so first, let's see. We all have a box collider for each of this cube. And if you do want to do those collision detection, if you use trigger trigger enter, you have to attach a rigid body to at least one of the object that is colliding. Okay, when colliding happening, it's at least two of them, right? So if you want to detect it, you kind of need at least one rigid body. So let's add a rigid body here to this cube in the front. All right. Okay. Let's remove the gravity and let's check this is trigger. Right now, if it's default, if there's no trigger, let's see. If two cubes hit each other, what's gonna happen? No. See if it's hitting each other. It's gonna be like something like the physics simulation there. So when you hit, it's gonna be a force applied on that object. That's because you are using the rigid body, and things like that will give you the physics effects. And since we are not using gravity, so you can see it's flying, just not like something on the earth. But if you do use this gravity, use gravity, okay, so you can see, right, it's more like when you're doing things on the earth, right? Okay, so the difference is now, let's see what is different. If we are using is trigger, if we're check this is trigger, let's see what's gonna happen. Okay, you can actually go through that. You can actually go through that object. So that's how you use this. Use this is trigger stuff. Okay. So so that gives you two different functions. First, let's write a script. Collision test 2. Collision test. Collision test 2. I need. Oh, okay. So that's two different functions. Let me just copy paste. That's, yeah. So that's two different functions. One is on trigger enter. One is on collision enter. So that's two different things. If you are doing on trigger enter, that will detect the thing as trigger. So yeah. So if now let what we are setting up here is it will output the debug information's trigger if it's on trigger enter, and if it's on collision enter, we will debug log collision enter. Okay, now let's see what's gonna happen. Right now it is not a trigger now, so let's drag and see if there's hit, what's gonna happen. Okay, so what has been output is here, collision enter. So you can see the output information over here. It's a collision enter. But if we are using it's a trigger. See here, what being outputted is a trigger. So yeah, so that's two different kinds of collision detection. One is trigger, one is collision, and you can also use the thing like on trigger enter, on trig stay, or some other thing. But it's something like when the collision collider enters that trigger and stays in that trigger, what's gonna be happening? And another function is on trigger exit. So it's when this collision, when this touch end, when the touch ends, what's gonna happen. So you can use those functions to set up the reactions, the behaviors of your object whenever the collision happening. Okay. So that's the difference between this box collider, the collision detection, and for the rigid body, last time I was talking about the continuous collision detection. So you can use that because if you call on collision enter, it actually happen. The on collision enter function will be called when the collider hit each other and when the rigid body hit each other. So if you do want to set up the continuous collision detection, you need a rigid body over there. So because the continuous variable is a property of the rigid body, we can have an example. Yeah, that's what we are doing with the bullet, right? Yeah. Okay. So it's a bullet. Last time when we set it as 900. Come on.
That's a bullet damage, not bullet speed.
Oh. Yeah. So bullet speed is something here, I guess. Yeah. See. So actually that's pretty fast. 900, you can even tell that the bullet hit the enemy, but still the detection is happening. Because last time when we are doing the demo, I didn't put this rigid body. I did attach the rigid body to the bullet, I guess. So that's why we cannot make that happening. So that's what should be happening. And okay. So one of two objects should have a rigid body. And if you do want the continuous collision detection, that script has to be attached to that object with rigid body. Or if you have rigid body for both of your objects, then whatever object you want, you can put your script to that object. But still, you can do the continuous collision detection. Okay, yeah. So that's something about the collision detection we left over from last lecture, and the sending message. Yeah. So if you remember last time, we left from here. We created a new cube here. We create a new cube here, and then we are using something called expandable classes, expandable objects. We're attaching this script, so the item melee. So inside this script, we have a lot of options, variables we can set. Let's look at it. If you forget, in case you forget. So we have those enum, remember? Yeah, we have those enum, and we use this enum to make a decision how to make this object react to what's happening. Yeah, question?
Would you claim that enums or enumerators would be serve as a purpose of being an array? Would be similar to an array, would you say?
Array?
To an array.
It's not an array. It's enum, so it's list. We use that as a type.
Okay.
Different type. in our script in order to judge what kind of object it is and what kind of reaction we should take.
Because it just from what I see that it looks similar to one, but I think now that I'm looking at it,
It looks like you're initializing an array, but it's not. It's different. So if you're familiar with a programming language, so the enum is not the same thing as the array. The array you can use the index or something and expand the array, but enum you don't have those options. But some options for enum you cannot do that in array. They're different. So enum just list. As you can see, maybe similar to list. It's just the type, define the type of the action. So we have different type of action. We have change HP. We can activate an environment, things like that. And melee type is we have this object, and maybe it's a weapon, it's a portion, it's something else. So just list. So when we define this type here, so that then we can use this type. Sometimes you can define type with a class like this. Item melee is actually a type of mono behavior. So if you're familiar with object-oriented programming, that's something, some theory.
Enums are a very different form of data structure compared with what I'm seeing. Because it's not being stored that information is not being stored within an index, but it's just listing out.
Yeah, it's just listing out the type.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So then here you can actually start using this type. When you define a melee action, you define this action, melee action. And when you assign value, you can use those type to assign a value to there. But if you do look into this buff, debuff, change HP, they do have value there. I think it's 0, 1, 2, some index. It depends on different programming languages. But when you're using that, you're actually defining this action, this type. Okay, and then start function is empty because we're not doing anything when it start. So the thing is, we start looking from here on trigger enter. If you remember what we do on trigger enter, when we're doing on trigger enter, that object needs to have this trigger button checked. Okay, so whenever there's a hit, right? Let's debug, and we use the tag of the game object to judge what we are going to do. Because this the tag, I think I explained that. So the tag is something you set it from here on the very top. So here you can customize your own tag, but tag is used to categorize your objects in the game thing. Okay. So if it's enemy, if that object that hits me is an enemy, what's gonna happen is we detect first I need to judge what am I? Who am I? What am I? So here we're checking if my melee type is portion. If it's not portion, we do something here. However, okay, that's enemy. If it's not portion, we do something here. But for character, if the thing hit me is a character, then what we do is, if I am a portion, I'm gonna change the health of the game object. Okay. So this is mainly if I am a portion and if my action is change HP. So what you set those two different variable, portion, change HP, is from here. See? So when we attach this script, we actually have those options here. Why do we have those options? Is because we define them as public variables here. And the default value is none. So here we can change it from none to change HP, none to portion. So to make sure that we want to create, I'm trying to create some healing object in this game scene, so that when the character enter that healing object, pick up the healing stuff, then my HP is the character's HP is gonna recover by some amount. Okay, so we can set up the amount as 20. 20. Yeah, I already set it. Okay, so that's the item melee. And let's see here on collision enter, on trigger enter. If the trigger is a character, because the only thing that moving in this thing is a character, so we use this case character, and I don't want that, confuse people. Okay, so if melee type equals to portion, we do this, change HP. But if the melee type is portion, however, if the melee action is buff debuff, we're not doing the change health. Instead, we do something else. Just you can decide. You can use, the purpose we're using this script is we want to have a script there that you can attach to different game object, and you don't have to rewrite the whole script again and again for different object, because there are a lot of things in common for those objects. So you want kind of set up this kind of expandable classes and put that script, attach that script to different game object. But for different game object, you set up differently by selecting different variables from this action, from this type. So the idea behind is this. That's the idea. Just a script can be reused in a script for different object. And how you implement that script, maybe you need to design that a little bit. And here, another thing I want to explain is change health. How we implement that function, we're using, if we navigate to this function, change health. Okay. So whenever, if that object, if I am a portion and I want to change HP, my action is change HP, this function will be called other.send message change health amount. This is just a string, not an object. So this game object is the object that hit me. Okay. So if anything hit me and I am a portion, I am trying to change that health, that HP, then I will send a message. I will send a message to the thing that just hit me, to the object that just hit me. So it's just, I call the other, the object that hit me, send message. We use this function to send a message, change health and amount. And how the other side, how the object receive that message is actually pretty easy. So whenever you send message to that object, it will go through every script you attach to that object. Whenever it find a change health function, that function will be called with this parameter amount. Okay. So actually here is what I want to do is this. I don't know. Do different things. First, let's make it back to 20. Okay, it's gone. So I need. Okay, I'm going to hit that bullet, and you can see here. Yeah, there's some arrow. Here, the 80 is actually the current. 80 is current HP of that character. But if we continue, if we make the character hit, that cube, see, it actually come back to 100, so the full health. So that's because the change health function on this character has been caught. I believe it's here. Yeah. So there's a change health function in this React script, which has been attached to the character. That's when the character receives the message. This function will be caught. Okay, is that clear? So when you send message to the object will go through its scripts and find out the corresponding function to call. If the message is change health, then it will go to try to find the method which is called change health. If it change something else, it will call the method change something else. So that's when you are sending the message. Okay. All right. So that's it for this expandable project, expandable object. I hope you get is the idea that to reuse the script. Yeah, reusing will bring you many benefits. Like if you have a script, if you want to do modification to the script, you just need to modify one of them. That actually reduces your chance to get some bug. And sometimes you forgot to modify them. If you copy paste the function, same function for many times, sometimes you kind of forget to modify one of them. So that all bring you some problem. Okay, and a lot of things in if you're thinking from the perspective of software engineering, actually the whole object-oriented programming is kind of encourage you to reuse some portion of the code by the inheritance from your parents' class, things like that. Okay. And that also applies here in the game development. This idea, these thoughts. Okay.
So you mentioned the send message method. Can that send messages to other scripts? Like, is it only within? How would you send it to another script? You have to have another script object in the script you're in.
Yeah. So when you're sending scripts, so suppose there are two objects, the table and the chair. So if there's a hit, hit the chair, hit the table is gonna send a message to this chair. The chair is gonna, when the chair receives this message, what the chair will do is it will try to find if I have some functions that can be called to react to that message. Because the message sent has the method in it. So if I am hitting you, I want you to experience the hurt. So whenever I is hitting, I send a message like hurt. And so the chair is going to find if I have a hurt function. If the chair cannot hurt, right? So if the chair does not have a hurt function, nothing's going to happen. But if it hits me, I will call my function like hurt. Okay? Then I can feel the hurt. I will react to the hurt. It all depends what kind of script are you attaching to this object.
What would be the benefit of that than just calling that method from your other object? You know, are you trying to see if it has a method that's called that, or
you don't have to? You don't have to check if the other functions, if that object have that function or not. That's not the table's business. The table just needs send a message hurt. But if that object do not have a hurt, or the object does have a hurt, it's the other object's business. Okay. The other object is going to check all the functionality it has to see if it has a hurt function. If there's hurt function, it will be called. Okay. Yeah. Question?
So if you have two moving objects, they should both send messages to each other?
Yeah. Yeah, you can do that. You can just because if it's hitting me and if it's hitting my fist and I have a strong fist, I can smash stuff. Whatever object hits my fist will be smashed. So this will send a hurt message to me. I will send a smash message to this object. Okay, so just we need to call that function in the onTrigger enter, and then onTrigger or onCollision enter. Because onCollision enter or onTrigger enter, those two functions, when you call those two functions, it actually has the parameters of what is hitting of the other object. So you can use the other object, other dot send message, and send a message. It can send message to me, I can send message to that object.
So instead of using send message, why not try to use the actual component script and call the function that way?
Yeah. So yeah, that's another option, but that's not as flexible as send message. Because when you send message, you don't need to know what is hitting you. When you use that option, you said kind of get what is the type of the. When I call in the change health, I have to make sure that that object has a change health method there. Otherwise, well, you will have a non-point exception or something like that. But if you're sending message, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether that has a change health or not. So it's more flexible. Okay. All right. Clear? Very clear. All right. Now this is the inventory. Now let's first play with this game thing to see what's happening there. First, you cannot shoot stuff anymore here. Instead, what we're going to do is the inventory. If you have game experiences, right, you know that when you pick up object, when you pick up the armor, when you pick up a weapon, sometimes one of them is holding your hand, maybe the weapon, and you can put the rest in your inventory, maybe a backpack, something like that. You own all this object, you own all this game stuff. So here we're talking about how can we manage 8 stuff to the inventory. That's one way we are managing that. Okay, so here, let me show you. In this game thing, when you press I, that's inventory, initial inventory, I, you will have this, your current inventory. So on top of it, I've been setting up this inventory as 9, you can pick up 9 different kinds of game objects. And there are 4 of them underneath. That's sort of like a quick access to some of the more open use game objects. Things like that. So when you're playing with game object, there are different things you need to consider. first is the limit. So your inventory, you should have a limitation. When you have those equipment in your game character, sometimes you can only have like 9, 6. It depends on different games. To enhance your blood level, your HP, your intelligence, something like that, and increase different attributes of that character. Okay? But you have to manage that sometimes. So you kind of need to make a decision what kind of object, equipment I want to take with me. What object I need to abandon. So you need to have set a limit. The inventory. So the inventory has a limit. Also, when you access your inventory, when you access your inventory, it can be different. Like you call a menu of inventory, and you can see what is in your inventory. And sometimes you don't want to pause the game. Like in the multiplayer games, online games, World of Warcraft, you have all those items that is always available, showing to you, maybe underneath your screen. So the inventory is always there. You don't have to call a menu to use those objects in that inventory. And sometimes you need to consider the order, how you order your inventory. Sometimes it's you kind of sorting the item with that's automatically done by the system. Sorting the object with alphabet number, or you put like different page. Right? You put the armor stuff in one page, the weapon in another page, and the healing object in the third page, different page. So there are different ways to order, set up the limit can be a number, or limit can be a weight. And yeah, quick access. Sometimes you put the inventory always available. Sometimes you use the menu to access it. So it depends on what kind of game you are doing and you're implementing. But today we're talking about this style. We're calling the main menu. We're calling the menu out, and the menu will show you what is inside your inventory. And we'll see how we add stuff to the inventory, we remove stuff from inventory, and we use the object in the inventory. Okay. So right now it's all empty. The 9 inventory slots. We have 9 slots. And this 4 is the quick access, like the frequently used or the first 4. Okay, so we kind of set up 3 different objects here. So the red one is the inventory item 1, and this inventory item 2 is the green one, and this how do you call this color?
Blue.
Just blue. Okay, that's blue. Yeah, but it's cyan. Yeah, cyan. Yeah. Okay, cyan or blue. Cyan, blue. Okay, blue. Yeah. This blue object is kind of different because it's group inventory item. What is group? So it's like this red and green cylinder. Red and green cylinder, they are individual objects. You can pick up them, and when you pick up them, you can see there's one object in your inventory. But that blue one is think about something like the armor, and you pick up your bullets. Sometimes you pick a pack of them. So it's going to be 100 or 200. Okay, so that's kind of group of objects, and that's individual object. Blue one is group of objects. And let's pick a red one. Okay, so when we hit the red one, we pick the red one. I believe you know how to implement that destroy. Okay, so you can see here in this inventory, we have a inventory item 1 there. And in this quick access menu, there's 1 there as well. And you pick another one, the number is going to change to 2. 2 inventory item 1. Okay. And if we pick the blue one or the green one, let's see. See, so 1 inventory item 2. 2 inventory item 2. 3 inventory item 2. And yeah, this group item. We pick it, then it immediately becomes a 10. 10 group inventory item. And when we're trying to use the object, like put it on the ground, we just hit the button. It's flying away because, yeah. That's because, if we look at script, because we find that there's a speed, initial speed there, which we don't want it. We don't want to have that. So yeah, because I was trying to do is like when you're using that red object, it's kind of something you can shoot to hit the other, to hit the other enemies. So that's something like projectile you're shooting. Yeah, it's a long script, but if you read them, one by read them, you will find it's pretty easy. Let's see here. It's actually there's a GUI function when we click that button. What's gonna happen is here. You can guess that we are using instantiate, right? Instantiate that object. So there's a red object when initialized there, and it's flying to somewhere. It's because we instantiate that thing and we give a velocity to it, so that if we do not want the velocity, we just need to comment that out. See, then we won't have the velocity. That's all controlled by you. So yeah, right now I want the velocity here. Okay, so now let's see how we are doing that. So first you kind of need to think about how can I make a storage system. If it's something like an online game, multiplayers, this kind of storage system may be pretty difficult, complicated, complex, because those things are usually in the database and it's in the server somewhere else. But if it's like desktop game, sometimes those inventory is not using, because that's pretty simple. So sometimes it's not using a database or something. It's just using some combination of array or array list, or something like that. Yeah. So here we are using a fixed. That's pretty easy because we start from the fixed number. The fixed number of inventory 9. So we have a whole bunch of different arrays to store the item. So, but we are all using string. We're not actually, when you pick up the stuff, when you pick up the object, you are not putting the object itself into that array. Instead, you just remember the name or maybe some identification of that object. Then you can destroy that object. Forget about the object. And then whenever you want to hit the object, we use instantiate to create a new one. So that when we pick up 1,000 of stuff, we do not need to have 1,000 like stuff occupy your computer memory. Yeah. So that's why we're using string. And if you want to make it pretty simple, you can like store those items, the actual items, in that array. But that will cost more resource of your machine. So you always keep in mind that you don't want to one single stuff to occupy. You want to avoid the cost to your machine as much as possible. And this inventory item, quick item, that's the thing we are trying to store. Okay, we will put the string, the name of them, like inventory item 1. We'll put them into the string. Okay, so initialize the inventory. Oh yeah, here we use the thing called key value pair. It's a data structure. It's a data structure that it's a pair of value. It's pair of value. It's the int and string. It's like the ID and the name. Okay, ID and name. We define this data structure here, and then we will use that somewhere. You will see. And let's see. When we are actually executing this script, what happens is here. So the awake. So awake function is you can think of it as similar as the start, but difference is start will be awake and start. One of them will be called only once. I forgot which one is it. But it's similar to the start. I think awake will be called only once. No, start will be called only once. And awake will be called every time you activate that. I believe so. I need to make sure. But it's similar to the start. This thing will happen when you start that, initialize that the game thing. So when you actually start this game, it will initialize the inventory. So what is happening in the initialization? It's here. So inventory items, that's array. We give a space like inventory size. It's defined as 9, but you can define something else as well. But now we define it as 9. So we initialize a 9 space array, string array, and for each of them we assign the empty for the array. For each of space we assign empty because the inventory is initialized as empty. Nothing's there. And the quick item is the same, but we don't need to initialize because for the quick item, what we're doing is we just copy the first 4 items from the inventory item, put them into the quick items, and we use this index to control because quick item, the length is going to be 4. Yeah. After we initialize this inventory, and then let's see what is add to inventory. So add to inventory, you can guess. It's happening whenever you have a collision. So this function, I guess it will be called in somewhere in the collision detection. Maybe on trigger enter something else. Let's see. Yeah, on trigger enter add to inventory. Okay, so when you actually there trigger entering, so what you do is you call the inventory, you call the add to inventory function, and different inventory function. And add to inventory function, it's it's how many and new item, so the item and the amount of the item. So when you add to inventory, first for this for loop, yeah, you kind of need to go through that inventory items. Here you detect the first one. So if it's empty, we can put that object into that slot. But if it's not empty, we need to go to the next. That's why we're having this for loop over here. We just loop through and to see if it's empty. If it's not empty, we're putting things in there, like a value. We update the value, and then we put them in this key value pair. So it's not it's not the ID. It's key value pair. We use that item and the number of the item. Okay, and then we put the key value pair into that account. Then we update them. We update the item count. We put this new value into this array. That's how we add to the inventory. Else here is like if the inventory items is not empty, we do this. But if it is if it's not empty, we kind of we oh, sorry. It's not that. So if it's not empty, we still need another charge. If it's not empty and then the name exists, so it's like the item has already been picked up. So what we want to do is we add a number, add 1 to that previous object we have already picked up. So if we have one object there, we pick another one, we put 2 there. So it's here. So if the name is like item, and then we put the value plus how many, usually it's plus 1, and we update the count with this new key pair value. So we have that item object 1. Then we become item object 2 in this key value pair. It's when you detect it and it's existing. And then here else is empty. So we just update that slots. We just update the value. We just have the value, the item. We update the item count. So yeah, we don't have enough time today. Now let's talk about it next time. Okay, thank you for coming today.